Welcome back to Silent Conspiracy. Picture this, May 25th, 2024, a blazing summer Saturday in Rajkot, Gujarat. TRP Game Zone is overflowing, families chasing cool air and a few hours of joy in a tin-roofed dome of diversions. Trampolines thrum upstairs, go-karts buzz below, phones capture grins that look like forever. At around 4:45 p.m., sparks from welding flick onto stacked foam sheets. In minutes, the fun dome is a furnace. In less than an hour, 27 people, many of them children, are dead, trapped by a single narrow exit, and a chain of failures that reads less like bad luck and more like a blueprint for disaster. Tonight, how an illegal structure without a fire knock became a mass casualty trap. How oversight, paperwork, and bribes conspired. Why families still ask the simplest question: if warnings were on file, why didn't anyone act? TRP Game Zone wasn't just under-compliant, it was built to burn. It's thrown up as a temporary two-story fabrication with tin roofing. The structure exploited gaps in oversight that too often treat temporary as exempt. Inside were all the wrong choices. Polyurethane foam, thermocol, wood, tarpaulin, open wiring materials that transform embers into infernos. The place ran without a fire department, no objection certificate, not a single compliant emergency exit. One narrow common entry and exit. Safety existed mostly as signage. This wasn't oversight. It was a bet that nothing would go wrong before the profits ran out. And the warnings weren't hypothetical. Small fire broke out here in late 2023's welding again. Flames again. A brigade call out again. Incident was noted, then filed, then ignored. In mid-2023, the town planning department even issued a demolition notice against the illegal build. No enforcement followed. The doors stayed open. Tickets kept selling. Welding carried on feet away from foam stacks. It wasn't a question of if, only when. May 25 dawned, like any summer Saturday. Lines at the ticket counter, day pass bands on wrists. Parents relieved to be indoors. By late afternoon, hundreds milled inside families on trampolines upstairs, teens at cart bays on the floor below, diesel and petrol stored on site for generators and racing. Workers were welding near piled sheets of flammables expansion work while customers played. Because there's no money in closure. At around 4:45 p.m., smoke. Sparks dropped onto polyurethane. A streak of orange leaped and grew. Staff tried first aid extinguishers, too little too late. Foam fed a blast of heat and toxic gases. Carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide. The upstairs trampolines vanished behind smoke. The only staircase, a narrow iron spine, turned into a chimney. Panic crashed into physics. The minutes that still enrage Rajkot. Officials say the first distress call logged at 5:43 p.m., trucks reaching roughly 4 minutes later. Survivors and neighbors insist the first calls went out closer to 5 p.m., whatever the discrepancy. By arrival, the building was collapsing, in roof bending, iron frames warping, black smoke punching skyward. What happened inside is why this story cannot be reduced to accident. Families were split by stairwells and smoke. Parents ran against a stream of bodies. Darkness fell at midday. You need to hear a few names to understand the scale. Virendra Singh, Jadeja, 42, ran upstairs when the screams began. He didn't return. 5 of his relatives died that afternoon. Virendra Singh, his teenage son, Dharmraj, brother-in-law, Om, nephew Pradip, niece Devarshi. 8 members had set out for a few hours of play. 3 came home. Vivek and Kushali, 26 and 24, married 2 months, joined Kushali's younger sister for a quick visit. Their families spent the night trying to call phones that would never ring again. By morning, they were in a queue outside the morgue. 19-year-old Asha had moved from Junagadh to Rajkot 4 months earlier, working at the zone to help fund her dream of joining the army. When the fire began, her father, posted as a security guard nearby, saw the smoke and ran. She was doing her job. She didn't get a chance to chase her dream. 20-year-old Nirav, an only child, died with dozens of others. His father filed a consumer case calling it deficient service. The law forces the language to sound bloodless. Families do not. Bodies were unrecognizable. Identification depended on DNA samples flown to Gundanagar's FSL. Parents waited days outside in 42-degree heat for confirmations and release, for a last ritual to make the unfathomable official. Among the dead was a Koner Prakash, herein identified by DNA car at the site, and CCTV. Whether he died trying to help or simply couldn't escape the trap he helped build. His presence seals the narrative. The makers of the hazard weren't immune to it. The investigation afterward reads like a ledger of neglect. The site was run by Deval Corporation and Raceway Enterprise. A year before the inferno, the town planning department's demolition notice documented illegality. It went nowhere. The facility ran without a fire knock. Police had signed a booking license for operations. But licensing is not safety. A special investigation team probed within days and called it what it was, a man-made disaster. The Gujarat High Court took suo cognizance, said the quiet part aloud. These places operate without approvals, under the nose of civic bodies and police. Officials were suspended town planners, an assistant engineer, roads and building staff, fire personnel, 2 local police inspectors benched. The court asked the obvious question. Why was the town planning officer suspended but the municipal commissioner transferred, not sacked? Responsibility dilutes with every rung climbed until it evaporates. The rot ran deeper. Corruption stings connected to the case found cash and gold hoards. In a grim encore, a successor fire officer was later arrested for allegedly taking a bribe to greenlight another building's clearance. The lesson. A compliance culture built on envelopes, 1T suddenly discovered conscience because 27 people died. Criminal cases followed. Owners and managers were booked culpable. Homicide not amounting to murder. Attempts, hurt, abetment. As proceedings crawled, all 15 accused pleaded not guilty. 1 remained absconding. Families burned by denial, delay, and ritual press conferences. Kept showing up to hearings, anniversaries, and candle marches that brought light but not relief. A few hard truths emerge. First, design kills. A temporary 2-floor tin and iron assembly stuffed with foam and tarps is not a building, it's a kill. Without multiple remote exits, alarmed detection, sprinklers, fire-rated stairwells, and fuel segregation, crowd space becomes a casualty machine. What made TRP profitable made it deadly. Low capex, high throughput, no closures for works, and a wink to paperwork. Second, enforcement is theater if nobody enforces. A demolition notice that ISNT executed is as useful as a fire extinguisher that ISNT maintained. Civic bodies can't outsource no to a PDF. Third, emergency response begins before the call. Leadership vacancies, drill starvation, hydrant mapping, access route planning, and clear SOPs for high footfall assemblies all matter on blue sky days, so the red sky day hurts less. If the logbooks say 4-minute turnout and witnesses say 45, reconcile it. Publish it, fix it. Fourth, compensation is not closure. Checks were announced for lakh rupees to the families of the deceased, smaller amounts to the injured. Help that pays for funerals and some months of rent is necessary. Justice that corrects the system is mandatory. Fifth, accountability must climb. The culture is suspend the lowest link, transfer the top, nothing changes. The High Court named it. Legislatures must codify it. Commissioners, chiefs, and political principals should be answerable for systemic failures on their watch. Transfers in a crisis are optics. Consequences are policy. There are also personal lessons, however unfair it feels to put the burden on citizens. In a country where rules on paper and reality on ground often diverge, walk with your own checklist. Count exits on entry. 2 or more, far apart, not locked, not hidden behind signage. If you can't find them in 30 seconds, consider leaving. Sniff for solvents and fuel. If there's carting, ask where petrol is stored and how much. Fuel and crowds don't mix without serious engineering. Ask about NOCs. If staff can't show a current fire knock and occupancy permission, escalate or exit. The families have done everything right, since petitioned, protested, filed cases, told their stories again and again in the hope that repetition will force reform. A year later, many asked a hard question. What has truly changed? Some inspections happened. Some zones shuttered. A draft framework for amusement and gaming facilities moved. But on the ground, pop-up domes still appear. Crowd spaces still run on Jugaad, and the market still rewards the operator who offers more thrills at lower ticket. Prices until the day the ticket becomes a toe tag. What then is the real conspiracy? It's banal and suffocating. A pipeline that starts with a temporary permit runs through friendly sign-offs, grinds to a halt at a demolition notice, nobody executes, and ends with a magistrate recording statements from parents who had to identify their children by DNA. It is a conspiracy of convenience, of Shaliga, of Kaldekt Hain, of budgets that never quite prioritize prevention over procurement. The names of the 27 should live longer than the headlines. Let their families' questions become the city's permanent checklist. If this story gripped you, don't let it go with outrage alone. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell if you want more investigations where pleasant facades hide structural rot and where ordinary people pay the price. Next time, we take you to another place where profit outran prudence.